Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Rochford Files. Coming to you live from the Mile Highland City. It's your host that's kind of between the coast. It's Andrew Rochford. Coming to you on a Tuesday night. It's been a few Tuesdays since you've had me here on this day of the week. So if you're coming in, please like and share, and hopefully, subscribe if you're someone new. Don't forget to go to the Linktree link below. That way you'll be able to follow the Rochford Files on other channels. So we've got it's quite a healthcare related show today. So big theme for today is definitely healthcare. We got some faux kana to throw at y'all too. Then some little bit of dumb liberal shit for the stuff that they try to get trending on Twitter. So that's a big part of what consists of on tonight's episode of the Rochford Files. Now, I may go a bit off the flow, so to speak. I usually keep my tabs very ordered in the way that I would like to do the show, but you know what? I think I'm gonna go in a different direction here. There we go. We're gonna start off with with Ro Khanna. Now we can show that on the screen now that it's been corrected. So yeah, I'm gonna go a bit off the order, and we'll start with some faux kana. He did some things such as a little CNN appearance, and also he just did an interview on Sabby Sab, so I'm going to play a little clip from that too. So let's start with the CNN interview first. So this is in relation to Nancy Pelosi wanting to make a trip to Taiwan.
On a different issue, Congress, President Biden has said the U.S. military believes a Taiwan visit by the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is, quote, not a good idea.
Oh, thanks, Kelly. Hopefully you have a smooth trip wherever you're headed to.
Right now, you sit on the Armed Services Committee. Should she call off this possible trip to Taiwan?
No, she should not. I respect Speaker Pelosi. I mean, we're not going to let the Chinese Communist Party dictate where the Speaker of the House should go. Taiwan is an economic partner with us. That doesn't mean that her going there is somehow not recognizing the one China policy. She should absolutely go. And we need to speak out on human rights issues in China. And we need to speak out about the trade deficit in China. So I fully support her going.
So this is what U.S. politicians have become. And this is supposedly a guy who calls himself progressive. And he's talking just like your standard liberal and conservative politician here. Hey, WCSN, what's up, man? Yes, I'm back up here because I don't have the downstairs to myself. But weather's cooling down now. Not as hot as it was the previous couple weeks, so that's a good thing. But back to this point right here. Indistinguishable from a progressive in Ro Khanna's espousing talking points, very much in line with your normal Democrat and Republican politicians. You see here talking about human rights issues. It's clear to me that they're always more concerned about so-called human rights issues in like China, Venezuela, Cuba, all countries, by the way, which are doing better for their people than the country that politicians like Khanna are representing. And I'm not going to, and I'm being fair to China because they actually want to call out the human rights abuses that take place here in the United States.
But is it worth potentially, God forbid, provoking some sort of military response from the Chinese?
They should realize that that would be the worst thing they could do. I mean, they've seen this president, our country's resolve in Ukraine with rallying NATO. They've seen the sanctions on Russia. I mean, they would cripple their entire economy. They are so dependent on the United States in terms of the trade that we have. So we shouldn't allow them to bluff and dictate to America.
Hey, man, I don't know about that one because China's really becoming a world economic superpower, and they're not going to be dependent on the United States like they used to be in the past. If anything, time will show that the United States will be extremely dependent on China. There's a reason why so many politicians and like powerful people will talk out of one side, demonizing China, but at the same time, you damn well know that they're profiting off of China in some way, shape, or form. Yet, the typical discourse always tries to demonize LeBron James for not wanting to be too critical of China hurting the pockets, but we know that they're more than likely all your propagandists of the anti-China push. They're making some sort of profit off of that China market.
The greatest nation in the world, where our Speaker of the House should travel. I mean, who are they to say that Speaker Pelosi shouldn't go to Taiwan?
Congressman Ro Khanna, thanks as usual for joining us.
Well, Ro, there's this thing called the Department of Homeland Security. They can actually, for us here in the United States, they can determine who does come and doesn't show up into their country. So there isn't this whole sense of entitlement bullshit that Khanna was pushing right there. No. If China has their own procedural department, that would probably determine whether Nancy Pelosi is allowed into the country, and they have the right to reject her, just in the same way that the United States, with the Department of Homeland Security, have the right to reject certain people coming into here too. And this guy, when you look at his Twitter bio, says ending the endless wars. So let me put that, hover over Y'all see that? Ending endless wars. There was nothing in that clip that was consistent with the messaging of ending endless wars. Ro Khanna has ascended to shilling for endless wars now that a conservative Democrat, Joe Biden, is now in charge of office. And he has the audacity to come in to this interview and talk about how and defend the American war machine, though be a pro-NATO voice, when this is a time where, with the way that the U.S. has been pouring billions of dollars into the proxy war with Russia, and how similar-minded capitalist NATO countries, all with some form of white settler colonialism in connection, they're backing this too. So tell me, how's that anywhere close to being a damn progressive? Because what's clear to me is the US left is a fucking joke. The progressives that they allow to be the quote-unquote representation in Congress, when the reality is they're really just spineless moderates at best. But let's now go into the clip that Sabby Sabs posted earlier today. This was a random interview that she did out of nowhere. And I would say she did a very good job holding Ro Khanna's feet to the fire throughout the duration of that interview.
The majority of Americans want a third party. Neither Republicans or Democrats are actually helping the American people. Like, we see them helping corporations all the time. I would actually say that 2024 would actually be the time that a third party candidate could actually stand a good shot.
Now, if there is an independent grassroots candidate who is standing for bold progressive policies, fine. But usually the independent third-party candidates tend to be billionaires or celebrities, and it's not clear to me that those policies that they're going to advocate are going to be Medicare for all, or free public college, or the progressive policies that many people, your listeners, care about.
Oh, so let's start off here. This is Ro Khanna just trying to go to a straw man with the whole, based on the typical characterization of what third-party candidates tend to have marginally more success, and that was Kanye West in the previous election, and how even though Andrew Yang bowed out in the Democratic primary, he's exactly that brand of celebrity that Ro is trying to refer to as someone that's rich and not really looking out for interests like Medicare for all. But the reason why they don't have as hard of a battle is because of how much the Overton window is so far tilted in the direction of the right.
Well, I happen to know one here locally pretty well who was grassroots third-party candidate, and that was Dr. Jill Stein. And when she ran, we were guilt-tripped to vote for Hillary Clinton. But I still say to this day that Jill Stein was the better candidate.
Well, I supported Hillary Clinton in the general election, and I'm proud of supporting Hillary Clinton. I think that Trump was such a threat to democracy and is such a threat to democracy. Look, if Hillary Clinton had won, we would not have had Roe versus Wade overturned. So I do not.
That's quite a revisionist take there by Ro Khanna. He's absolutely trying to put himself in good graces for that future presidential run by talking about how prideful he was of that Hillary Clinton vote in 2016. And for me, the last time I'll vote Democrat. And I still hold a lot of disgust towards making that decision in that time, when if I had known better, I would have been on at least a few more years into being part of this left than I am now. But once again, he's doing his part with trashing third-party candidates. And now with Jill Stein. And let's take it back, because Ro Khanna could easily say the same thing about this previous election with Joe Biden. And let's be real here. With Jim Crow Joe, it's just another same bullshit rationalization. And even with as much of a mixed bag as Howie Hawkins is, he's still better than almost every Democrat that's in office right now. And then once you get into the vice president with Angela Walker in comparison to Kamala Harris, that shit gets blown out of the water in favor of Angela Walker. The same person that the K-Hive, by the way, tries to call the left racist for not voting for, when it's Angela Walker who has reparations on her platform, while Kamala Harris will never support reparations. And next off, even if Hillary Clinton had a 4-year term instead of Donald Trump, how do we know for certain that Hillary Clinton doesn't fuck up and pick the wrong conservative justices, and they still eventually overturn Roe versus Wade anyway?
Not agreeing with people who supported Jill Stein, especially in swing states, because the costing of Hillary Clinton that election really led to Gorsuch and Kavanaugh and the Supreme Court that we currently have.
Well, I would say that Hillary Clinton's campaign cost her the election herself. I feel like that was her doing. Ignoring the Rust Belt, I think, was a totally awful idea. You cannot avoid the Rust Belt. Having a running mate who was anti-choice, Tim Kaine, was not pro-choice when it came to abortion, was also not a good idea, and she's corporate. So
look at him blink and roll his eyes the moment where Sabby finally drops facts on him, and he definitely not handling it very well. I mean, even though Roe does go on a lot of independent media, I think this is one of those moments where he's actually taking it harder than usual.
for me, I was looking for someone who's grassroots, someone who actually cares about the people, someone who is not going to get us into these never-ending wars. Hillary Clinton was just going to be an extension of Barack Obama, and people wanted something different. So I don't blame someone like Jill Stein. I blame Barack Obama. I think he's the one that actually gave us Trump in the first place, because he made all these promises and he didn't fulfill them.
Oh, she went in. Ro Khanna. I really do wonder how he answered it, but you could just tell by his expressions that he wasn't having it. And that's what she did throughout much of that interview with the congressman who represents Silicon Valley interest, not that of what the progressive is supposedly for. So this is another moment where Ro Khanna exposes himself for the faux aggressive that he is, because he's eventually going to stop doing these interviews. And if there's a real opportunity for him to somehow emerge as someone in the primary, guess what? He's going to be the president of Silicon Valley. And Nancy Pelosi and all her damn insider stock trading, and her family, who's going to get to inherit that money down once she dies, and her family is going to continue to benefit from someone like Ro Khanna. So do not believe for a second that Ro Khanna is ever going to be someone to come through on any type of working class policies, because the reality is he won't. And he's going to progressively over time shill harder and harder and harder for wars. He exposed himself when he with how much he is the typical, extends down to that SOCDEM, where they come out as hard against communism, if not more, when we're so far shifted to the right that they should realize, if they were really genuine about trying to get to socialism or even social democracy, that they would be the hardest shills of communism there is. But the truth is, that rhetoric about how bad-mouthing communist China, that's the same type of thing your typical SOCDEM does. And how they got them really hedging hard on this whole Russia-Ukraine shit. And it makes them look more like the pro-Ukraine left, too. And Ro Khanna is going to continue to get exposed for the fraud that he really is. So next, let's get into a big part of the show now with healthcare. I think that's really, and it's going to start with a guy who triggered an insanely terrible argument in favor of this status quo private healthcare system. So this comes from Matthew Y. Glacius, and the Y stands for, why the fuck does he have such a big platform? My number one, quote, unpopular opinion that is actually extremely popular is that the U.S. healthcare status quo is pretty good for most people. Oh wait, I need to bump that up. There we go. A moment for those of you to read that. So I sometimes want to say that the American healthcare status quo is underrated, but then I remember that surveys always show that the vast majority of insured people are happy with their existing insurance situation. So my actual hot take about this is that the status quo is maybe correctly rated for the majority of people. The TLDR is that while American healthcare consumes a lot of financial resources compared to other countries, that's actually a very easy problem to fix. Dumbass, all you gotta do is put a system in place that takes out the fucking mafia middleman of private insurers, and that right there will be one way to cut down on a good amount of financial resources. Then another great way to make a universal healthcare system in the United States pay for itself. Cut the goddamn military budget by 90%, if not more. And when I say 90%, that is even generous for some of the left that speaks on this, who would want a 99% cut of the military industrial complex. And I would be very for that as well. But we currently live in times where our politicians are so fucking pathetic that they won't even agree to a meager 5% cut. It also seems to deliver some of the benefits you would expect from spending more money. A good paper from Samuel Preston and Jessica Ho delves into this. The US appears to screen more vigorously for cancer than Europe, and people in the US who are diagnosed with cancer have higher 5-year survival probabilities. There is a similar, though not quite as strong, pattern with cardiovascular disease. It is treated more aggressively on average in the US, and survival odds are better. A detailed survey of prostate cancer evidence shows that the combination of earlier detection and aggressive treatment in the United States has produced greatly improved survival chances for men diagnosed with prostate cancer. Similarly, for breast cancer, America does more with early screening and more aggressive treatment, with the result that the U.S. has experienced a significantly faster decline in breast cancer mortality than comparison countries. Where is the part where it actually benefits the money that people have to spend for this? Because all this says is that it just happens to be private insurers just happening to get more money filled in their pockets based off of these cherry-picked results right here. So tell me, Maddie, what happens for the people who are just one major health crisis away from being bankrupt, from having a life of having to make up for medical debt? How about the people who are having to play healthcare roulette? And what I mean by that is they're skipping the employer provided healthcare insurance. That way they could have more money to spend on groceries or their gas, or maybe that little bit of extra helps them cover up their rent, or it may be for a little bit of a money that helps them have a fun activity to do like once a week. How about those people? The nearly 70,000 people a year who die due to lack of proper healthcare coverage all due in part to a private healthcare insurance system that is being propped up by the United States, the corrupt politicians, and the big pharma, and the private healthcare lobby who buys out the politicians to keep this system in place. I know one person in San Antonio, by the way, who has a hernia that has been growing in her stomach, and she has been struggling with the pain of that for nearly 2 years now. And guess what she's learned? That the only way that she can get that hernia removed is if she gets a weight loss surgery. And her insurance does not cover that. Is that a good status quo system, Maddie? One that where we should be about trying to get people's positive health care outcomes, no matter what it takes. But guess what? This woman in San Antonio, she will have to go down to Mexico to get that weight loss surgery because it would be far too costly to do it here. Not only that, but to get someone to do a GoFundMe for that. Another major problem with healthcare crises in the United States is the fact that endless amount of people have to start a GoFundMe for it. When a serious country would be taking care of people's problems free at cost. Tell me what fucking part of this status quo is good for you, because go to that hospital she's at right now and go argue to her that this status quo private healthcare insurance is good. Because if you go talk to a real person that has a real struggle with healthcare and has been drowned in medical debt, they'll be the ones punching you in the face when you try to spew that bullshit out at them. But it's also good. But now we got to shift to AOC because she's getting exposed further and further of a fraud. And this also continues to connect to the whole healthcare thing, because this is a good tweet from Daniel right here. He's a medical student, so he's one of the big healthcare advocates in the United States. Also a very good account to follow on Twitter. And his little thread here actually elicited a response from AOC. But let's read that. A couple of the most highly respected health policy academics recently set up a meeting with AOC's office to discuss NHS-style healthcare reform. They were told bluntly by AOC staff, "We're not doing healthcare right now." Let it be known, this point first and foremost, it's that Medicare for all is not the end goal. You can ask several people, whether it's me, James Fauntleroy of Revolutionary Blackout Network, Medicare for all is not the goal. So when you have these G-Hive type accounts try to argue about how Medicare for all is better, don't believe them. They're a bunch of liars and con artists when it comes to guiding people in the wrong directions in terms of policy. And that it really, an NHS style healthcare system is the ultimate end goal here. They were told bluntly by AOC staff, we're not doing healthcare right now. But I think that's violence, AOC. And if you're serious about not being violent, you should reprimand that staff member for this violent statement. Because when you're in a position to where you could help fight back against this private healthcare insurance system, the one that kills nearly 70,000 people a year, and you're in a position of power to where you could effectively do your part to try to prevent that from happening sooner, then yeah, they're committing violence. So while she's doing performative resistance art for the camera, she's, quote, not doing healthcare right now. We are in the middle of 2 pandemics, and people are still dying because they lack healthcare. This is not fighting. And once again, the second part of the tweet, it's always getting to the point where the powerful will always cry about any time you try to challenge them as violence, while the powerful and the elite, they get the monopoly on violence. You see why we're adamantly against the police state, for one. If you want to know why they think we need a national health service, read this article. The profiteering and consolidation has gotten bad on the provider's side. Healthcare resources should ultimately be community ownership. And that right there is a good example of an article explaining why Medicare for all is not enough. And that anyone who tells you it is definitely not serious. And especially if they're someone who claims to be on the left. Imagine if we just expropriated all the healthcare assets and used them to keep our community healthy, instead of letting oligarchs play monopoly with them. Yep. And every moment that all these elected progressives, such as including a squad, continue to refuse to take action, they're allowing themselves to be a part of the monopoly game too. Even if they're not buying any property and they're constantly bankrupt, they're still playing the game. They're not trying to flip the board over and really upset the structure. Because if they were serious, we would have seen a lot of fucking board flipping by now. And here's this bullshit fake condolence type of response from AOC. I'm really sorry to hear this happened. It's not representative of me, nor my values. If you can connect with details, I'd appreciate it. I'll follow, so DMs will be open. So what's going to happen? So you're going to allow this guy, Daniel right here, to message you. Then you're eventually going to invite him over to your office, wherever the fuck it is. by the way. And that way you could just use them for a performative photo op. Just in the same way that Rokana wanted to use like Ricky Rance and Savage Joy Marie as photo ops. But even though, but the smart people here are still going to take the opportunity to make sure to use that face-to-face time to try to push a politician to actually do something for once. Regardless of the photos, we can confidently say with Savage Joy Marie, Ricky Rance, and I'm sure with Daniel here eventually, if he does get that opportunity to meet AOC directly face to face, that after that meeting, we won't be saying that they're co-opted, because serious healthcare activists are going to jump at any opportunity they have to advance the cause to the next step, which is getting Medicare for all, because the reality is Medicare for all will be the next step to a getting to that NHS universal healthcare system. But there's a lot of obstacles in the way, making it extremely difficult to get to that point. And that starts with shitty ass liberals like who espouse bullshit, fucking nonsense, American exceptionalism, which anyone who's really suffering right now does not give a fuck about the nationalism, red or blue. They just care about being able to survive and maybe just have a chance to float above water a bit. And also, when they do have a health complication, it's not going to fucking bankrupt them. That's what they want. They're not about the whole performative aspects. They're not deeply invested in this useless January 6th investigation where ultimately nothing is going to change after this is all said and done with. Then they're going to move on to the next bullshit distraction theater. While we want people focused on healthcare, the free college and student debts. And no, if you try to flex on that whole flex of what about someone else's debt, that don't work on people who are principled on trying to figure out ways to get everyone out of debt. Because if you bring up another major debt problem, good, let's end that too. You know, a thriving wage. You know, that would be a great start to combating this inflation. Because, you know, it's about time we thought from the mindset of giving the people more spending power rather than giving rich people more upward transfer of wealth. Because when has that ever worked to solve the conditions of the working class? Never. And no drop in the bucket bonuses from your employers to celebrate a tax cut is going to cut it. Just remember that they had a chance to start to flex their muscles and use their power, specifically the progressives, that is. But they threw that all away. They refused to do it. They had the opportunity to do it, using the speakership vote for Nancy Pelosi as some form of leverage to come through for the left. But that didn't happen. And now you're to a point where we're left to fight this battle for universal health care on our own. And just to illustrate once again how problematic and unserious this country of the United States is, and its fake exceptionalism. Great tweet from Danny Haifong, by the way. Cuba has a diabetic cream that treats deadly ulcers. By the way, I forgot to mention that woman in San Antonio. Her current hospital stay right now, after getting the go-around and several other visits with pain, they just discovered an ulcer in her in this recent colonoscopy that she just had this morning. And think about if the United States wasn't so decided to treat Cuba as its enemy. They could be using that cream right now to help with that ulcer. Cuba has a lung cancer vaccine. How about the United States? No. Cuba has advanced treatments for head and neck tumors. All of them save countless lives. None of them are available in the United States due to Washington's sanctions. And it's very simple to see why the politics of the United States bad should be considered a very reasonable viewpoint. Fuck you, United States. You could be working with Cuba right now. And you could be, Cuba, this country you try to call a communist dictatorship, when the reality is they're the gold standard of healthcare in the world. Not only that, but they're innovators, as exampled by this Danny Haifong tweet. Where's the fucking innovation, United States? Oh, it's because this fucking big pharma won't allow the United States to have that same type of innovation. They could be copying this too, but given how suspect that some of these big companies like Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, and Moderna are, it's going to be viewed very rarely if they try to come up with their own type of variants. And this is why it is utter bullshit how you got this capitalist empire of the United States and the way that they cannot respect countries who do not fall in line with the same ideology. You see here with good principled people on the left who prioritize the issues first and foremost. If someone does good work and they're not a socialist or communist, we still give them credit. Like, for example, Julian Assange. We know that he's not a socialist or communist, but that doesn't take away any of his journalism and the impeccable record of his revealing of the U.S. war crimes. And that's the reason why the United States is mad at him, and they're trying to kill him in prison, especially if they get to try him full on for the Espionage Act of 175 years. They want that man dying in prison when all he did was real ass journalism. Then there's plenty of other countless examples of your foreign policy reporters who definitely aren't part of the left, but they're saying much of the same similar things that your left-wing foreign policy reporters are. And that's the thing the United States can't handle. The state powers that be cannot work with other countries who do not match in terms of ideology. Look here. When you see like China and Russia and they're not exactly, and the countries that coalesce with them at moments, China's actually working with countries that aren't very like them. And you know why China's willing to work with other countries, even if they're not like a match in terms of like their economic structure? It's because they share a common enemy in the United States. And if we were a true collaborative world, you know who would have probably been the one who got invested in the vaccines? Yes, everyone would have been investing in Cuba vaccines if that were the case. You know, the ones that will probably continue to show better results against each and new variant of COVID that we'll see in the future. And guess what? If the United States and many of these other NATO countries just decide to invest in the country that actually was making the best vaccines, then we would be in a better place fighting against COVID instead of having no other option because our ruling class put us in a position where the only way that we were going to is relying on the virus mutations and letting it rip in order to eventually get weaker and lower death counts. So, tell me once again how the United States is the standard of healthcare when Cuba is the gold standard, and if the world was a serious collaborative society, guess what? Cuba would be an extremely rich country because the whole motherfucking world would be investing in their healthcare, and Cuba would be like healthcare university, like a lot like Alabama football, because you would just see a bunch of people being able to go all over the world and help spread their extremely high standards of healthcare. That would be what a collaborative society serious about healthcare would be. Not this whole private insurance, mafia men, and fucking gatekeepers, because this United States healthcare system is a major gatekeeper racket. But now is a good time to also work in another promotion for the March for Medicare for All. So let's go to the March for Medicare for All site real quick. So, as we know, Saturday is the big march for this year and the National Week of Action. So, let's take a look at some of these events. They're doing a banner drop at 3 p.m. H Street Northeast and 1st Street Northeast, sign waving at 4:30 at Union Station, and sidewalk chalking 6:30 p.m. at Union Station as well. Then on July 28th, they're doing sign waving 8:30 a.m. Arlington Memorial Bridge, Street Theater 11 a.m. White House Lafayette Square, sidewalk chalking 4:30, meet at southeast corner at the Ellipse. Project Bird Bath 8:45 p.m. meet at the Washington Harbor Shopping Center. Then next on Friday, door hanging 10 a.m. National Mall. Zombies on the Hill 1 p.m. Email m4m4all at m4m4all.org for information. Sign making party National Mall 7 p.m. Then Big March Day starts at 10:30. Marchers will meet at the southeast corner of the Ellipse off of Construction Avenue Northwest between 15th Street Northwest and 17th Street Northwest. The march will end at Union Square. Parking garage at the Ronald Reagan Building and International Trade Center. Metered parking is available in the area, but they typically have time limits from Union Station approximately 10 minutes by cab and 35 minutes by foot. The rally, 12 p.m. People will begin congregating for a rally in Union Square off of 3rd Street Southwest between Madison Drive Northwest and Jefferson Drive Southwest. Speakers will be announced in the coming weeks. Parking garage at 601 Pennsylvania Avenue Northwest. Meter parking is available in the area, but they typically have time limits. Union Station 6 minutes by cab and 16 minutes by foot. Now let's check out some of the other ones outside DC. Kickoff march and rally in Indianapolis 12:30 to 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Tweet storm to urge Biden and Affordable Care Operation Reach Day. ACO Reach Day, I'm not sure what that stands for exactly. Then let's go to tomorrow's. Call the White House to urge Biden and ACO Reach. 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. and there's a script to click. Call the White House again during those same time frames. Tweet storm promoting the Washington, D.C. march and rally. And yes, I will be sure to be involved in that tweet storm for you. Watch our live stream of the march and rally. Links coming soon. And let's look at some of the speakers for this year's event. We got Reverend Annie Chambers, Claire Cohen, Dr. Cedric Taylor, Dr. Anna Manalo, Zach Schimmel, Susan Rogers, MD, Savage Joy Marie, Mike Papas, MD, Steve Grumbine, Mary Gurich, JD, Margaret Flowers, John Kramers, Haley Mack, Kim Brown, Burn It Down, Jeff Ginter, Delman Coates. Quite the group, and also a lot of healthcare professionals. Unlike that guy who said that they were going to do their own rally with a bunch of healthcare professionals, but never followed through on those plans. So that's your slate so far for the 2022 March rally and speakers. So even if you're not in DC, do your part to share and promote the events. Share the live streams when the links become available. That way people from the outside of DC will be able to follow the event as well. Now let's shift gears, shall we? A little bit. Oh yeah. We gotta start off with some Matt Gaetz. And this is in relation to the Roe versus Wade. So, great moment for me to advocate for health care and do something and this clip will allow me to do something that I wish I could do more of. And let's start here.
Mm-hmm. Is it safe to say that based off of your comments, you're suggesting that these women at these abortion rallies are ugly and overweight?
Yes.
What do you say to people who think that those comments are offensive?
Be offended.
Mm-hmm. Is it safe to say that based off of your comments, you're suggesting that these women at these abortion rallies are ugly and overweight?
Yes.
What do you say to people who think that those comments are offensive?
Be offended.
This is the misogynistic clownery that you get from dipshit asswipes like Matt Gaetz, that they're the ones who are making it they've always made it a major culture war. Just the fact that that some people aren't fit or in good enough shape. And let's be real, conservatives who think that fit is the only good way to look, which, by the way, it's not. It's the fact that these people have such a fucking obsession over other body diversity. And as I went over a little over 2 months ago, these incels threw a fucking hissy fit over seeing a plus-size woman, a beautiful plus-size woman, by the way, graced one of the covers of the Sports Illustrated Bikini Edition. These are the type of things that conservatives are focused on right now. They're focused on more, instead of like the performative wokeness, which ultimately doesn't go anywhere, which is often what Democrats like to do, by the way. It's the thing that matches it is just what this Matt Gaetz does. This fat phobic slob, making it in the same way they're doing their part to try to make you hate your neighbor. Just like in the way Democrats try to make you hate the unvaccinated and blame them for the state that we are in with COVID, their conservatives are trying to make you blame fat people for your problems. Because a conservative healthcare argument is that if you're fit and in good shape, then you're going to be in better position to not have to deal with the hardships of the U.S. healthcare system. But let's be real. Canada, Britain, even though you can make your whole reductive obesity rate arguments, I mean, they're not far off. And they still got their form of a universal healthcare program. And what people like Matt Gaetz want is a society full of self-loathing fat people. And we are far past that point. If there is one positive of the internet and social media, in my opinion, it's helped get like plus size women get to the point where they find that they have a place to be body positive. And yes, no matter how much you try to ingrain it into their belief system, that ridicule and shame is the only way you're going to get them to change. You're actually going to find more productive results if you try to uplift their confidence before you try to help them encourage people to be more active. Just keep that in mind, just because there's plenty of overweight conservative people out there. And I'd like you to think about this. People like Matt Gaetz want you to be self-loathing and self-hating. People like the left, there's still a bit of fat shaming that it does exist on the left, by the way, and I will get into that shortly. But we know that capitalism is a pretty big problem. That doesn't help the whole obesity aspect either. And we know that if we got to a socialist country here in the United States, guess what? People are going to have better sex. People are going to have extra time to enjoy life with their friends and family. And they're also going to be able to have more money to spend on healthier foods and more time to work out. Ding, ding. Matt Gaetz wants to uphold the system that keeps obesity rates high, and also one that paralyzes you into bankruptcy and debt and agony, especially if you're a woman who doesn't have her bodily autonomy rights. And this is why, and a big part of why I'm anti-body shaming is it's just another wedge that the conservatives try to put between you. Just like all the rich and powerful are doing right now, is they just want to keep us fighting each other. But What we should be doing is taking the fight to them. And even though there's liberals and lefties who mainly only call out the conservatives for being culture war puppets, just know the liberals are playing their part in it too. But it's also important to point out that even though I do believe that the left is largely better about not body shaming, just from my outsider viewpoint, I would ask other people who are bigger on the left if how they feel about that, just to have a more informed perspective on it. But there's still a bit of body shaming that exists on the left as well. And that includes Samira Khan. And she's actually lost it a lot lately. I mean, last year I found myself defending her a lot. And nowadays she's really played into the hands of the culture war that people like Matt Gaetz like to invoke the flames on. Leftists are mad at Matt Gaetz for openly saying what everyone is thinking. Yeah, he's objectively correct about ugly and overweight women at liberal protest. And if there's anything you know about Samira's when she tweets, she's clearly a pretty shallow person. Me, on the other hand, I pretty much like women of all sizes. And if your thing is to like women that I'm not attracted to, then I'm happy for you. Or if you're someone who's just attracted to anyone that I want to be attracted to, great. That shit is so fucking high school. Making fun of people for liking different things than you. And this is why that's the part that's really fucking annoying about what Matt Gaetz is saying. Because that shit is fucking high school. Making fun of people for choosing to date someone who isn't the societal standard of beauty, because beauty is subjective all across the board. And it's a waste of time to get caught up into insulting people based on looks, given the times that we are in and how much the ruling class here continues to make lives of people worse. And you want me to get concerned about stuff like this? You're making him more likable by shaming him publicly. You guys will never understand how normal Americans think. No. That may have been what the propaganda wants. But let's be real here. People are moving past what the media's societal beauty standards are. If you ask Americans now, they're making more and more progress to work past this. because even though women are going to be the majority of those who struggle with their body image and being able to accept themselves for who they are, it's really, there are also men who do too. And what you're telling me is it exposes her disconnect as someone who used to be a model. And she's also someone who always likes to flex on people for being able to eat fast food a lot and being able to maintain her model-like body. But in that same breath, she'll also agree with body shaming arguments while mocking them at the same time for the being able to eat more unhealthy and have it not affect her. Such a nice flex there. And Samira does consider herself left, so it's important to point out a bit of the body shaming that does take place on the left. And when it all comes down to it, it's such a fucking stupid thing to get caught up in. And I know that most people just want to be happy and find friends or dating where they're loved and accepted for who they are and not have their time wasted on people who don't. Because for every moment that you just try to straw man women at those recent protests as being overweight and quote ugly, you're also not helping the cause of those who you do consider attractive either. So an interesting study came out a few days ago, by the way. And this is something that I'm going to get into after I go get me some more water. So let me put up some music for a moment. Back here on the Rochford Files with yours truly, Andrew Rochford. And we got to get into this one of the last things for tonight, it's going to be that new healthcare study, a new study that got released about depression and chemical imbalances. So I thought it'd be good to get into that because it has a lot of interesting findings in it. So I'm going to start with the person who shared it, someone who often does, Nick Cruz of Revolutionary Blackout Network. A big inspiration for a lot of material of the show. By the way, thank you so much. And this is a little thread by him. So, over the weekend, he decided to post about the no evidence that depression is caused by chemical imbalances thing. That the article I'm about to go into detail with. And here's what he first said. Anti-science Twitter still furious at me for posting a major scientific study debunking their big pharma worship. And if when I looked through this, it kind of felt like a similar way that people treated Jimmy Dore when he first started to really go in hard on the COVID narratives, even though, once again, even though Jimmy started in about October last year, there was really a few other people who were ahead of the game of him on that, such as Ricky Vance and Convo Couch, Steve Poinkin. Those people were actually a bit ahead of him on trying to debunk some of the stuff in relation to COVID. And when you look at the responses that Nick got, you'll see that he did get a similar type of response to this as Jimmy Dore. And if you look at his tweets lately, you'll see a lot more people have been trying to come at him in the ratio, trying to start their own counter ratio against him. Specifically, a lot of idiot Ukraine flag accounts have tried to come after him, spamming the replies. Shit was crazy. The telling thing is like 95% of the backlash was people pretending I made the study up. Meanwhile, multiple mainstream outlets is reporting it. And there's the photo of the article that I will be reading shortly. People pretending science is a settled matter instead of an ongoing debate show how American education system is garbage. Anti-intellectual big pharma simps everywhere. And yes, I do agree. And I do feel that there's certain topics with certain groups of people that is hard to challenge people. It's very telling people felt attacked for me simply discussing this story. Like, I was invalidating their entire life. People's belief in science is just faith-based and unwilling to waver in light of new data. That is not science, it's a cult. Sound familiar? Look at these big pharma simps who don't know how science and studies work. And this account, Bad Medical Takes, tried to expose him. Why attack the YouTuber covering the study instead of the study themselves? It's almost like these people are bad faith and have an agenda. Y'all big pharmacy, so as loud as fuck in the other thread. Where are you at now? Any scientific critiques of the study I posted? Now people are forced to admit I was right. They are taking offense at me blaming capitalism. Once again, learn how to read. If you don't blame this on capitalism, You are not an anti-capitalist. And I think I'll just go straight to the article. But I will be saying that once I do read the article, I'm going through therapy right now. So I can tell you how much of my experience with therapy resonates to what is being said in this article. I've been doing this whole therapy thing for about 2 months now, and I am starting to do better. And it has definitely helped me with the way I respond to my depression as I work to work forward and build a new social life for myself, so to speak. But I'll go more into the personal experience of therapy after I read some pieces in this article. Scientists have called into question the widespread use of antidepressants after a major review found no clear evidence that low serotonin levels are responsible for depression. Prescriptions for antidepressants have risen dramatically since the 1990s, with 1 in 6 adults and 2% of teenagers in England now being prescribed them. Millions more people around the world regularly use antidepressants. Many people take antidepressants because they led to believe their depression has a biochemical cause. But this new research suggests that belief is not grounded in evidence, said the study's lead author, Joanna Moncrief, a professor of psychiatry at the University College London and consultant psychiatrist at North East London NHS Foundation Trust. That sounds like a pretty prestigious background to me. And the first part I'll say about my personal experience with depression is I didn't really like my experience when I did try taking antidepressants in the past, and I really didn't believe that they helped me as much as what like the doctors claim to be. So, and the times I did try them out, I did it for like a month or two, and I really didn't feel. And they try to tell you that you need to do it longer than like the time frame, but I can tell you that when you try to take more natural stuff to address your problems, you will feel more of a dividend sooner. Like, for example, I take this all natural anxiety, and even though I wish it was a bit more potent, by the way, I do by and large believe that it is helpful for me. And in fact, I'll even show you what I take right now. And I'll even break away from this article for a moment to show you what I've been taking. So this right here is what I've been taking. Life Seasons Anxiety. Because for me, after figuring out my issues a bit, I have found that trying to address anxiety is actually more helpful to bringing down my depression rather than taking antidepressants. So as you can see here, ashwagandha, GABA, kava, theobromine, and L-theanine. That's all the blend that's in it. And it's all pretty natural stuff. And that, by the way, is what I currently take as a form of trying to keep my anxiety under control, because I've discovered that I've developed a lot of anxiety after, in terms of social anxiety, also anxiety about riding in vehicles, specifically buses, due to my fear of getting dizzy. And stuff like this has helped try to bring that down a bit. But let's get back to that article. Many people take antidepressants because they've been led to believe their depression. Oh yeah, I read that. It is always difficult to prove a negative, but I think we can safely say that after a vast amount of research conducted over several decades, there is no convincing evidence that depression is caused by serotonin abnormalities, particularly by lower levels or reduced activity of serotonin. Thousands of people suffer from side effects of antidepressants, including the severe withdrawal effects that occur when people try to stop them. Yet prescription rates continue to rise. We believe this situation has been driven partly by the false belief that depression is due to a chemical imbalance. It is high time to inform the public that this belief is not grounded in science. The new review of existing studies found that depression is not likely to be caused by chemical imbalance, and said people should be made aware of other options for treating it. So this is the next part for me. In my start of therapy, I told my therapist that I wanted a more holistic approach to trying to help solve my problems. And I'm making some solid progress on that front. And, my therapist is also pretty good about being anti-capitalist as well, and pointing out how capitalism is a part of the cause of many people's depression. However, other finding experts, including from the Royal College of Psychiatrists, questioned the findings and urged people to not stop taking their medication in light of this study, arguing antidepressants remain effective. And this is not me, even though I don't feel antidepressants are for me. If you feel they are, then don't let this study change your mind on that. But there's a lot of people out there who were told to try it and found that they never got the desired results from it. In new analysis, researchers said 85 to 90% of the public believed depression was caused by low serotonin or a chemical imbalance. Most antidepressants are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, originally said to work by correcting abnormally low serotonin levels. The review, published in the journal Molecular Psychiatry, looked at the studies examining serotonin and depression involving tens of thousands of people. One of the findings was that research comparing levels of serotonin and its breakdown products in blood or brain fluids did not discover any difference between people diagnosed with depression and healthy people. The authors also looked at studies where serotonin levels were artificially lowered in hundreds of people and conducted that lowering serotonin in this way did not produce depression in hundreds of healthy volunteers. Other studies looked at the effects of stressful life and found that more stressful life events had experienced, the more likely they were to be depressed, showing the importance of external events. According to the research, there is evidence from studies that antidepressants may actually induce low serotonin in the long term. Our view is that patients should not be told that depression is caused by low serotonin or by a chemical imbalance. They should not be led to believe that antidepressants work by targeting these improving abnormalities, said Moncrief. We do not understand what antidepressants are doing to the brain exactly, and giving people this sort of misinformation prevents them from making an informed decision about whether to take antidepressants or not. Spokesperson from the Royal College said antidepressants are effective, nice recommended treatment for depression that can also be prescribed for a range of physical and mental health conditions. We would not recommend for anyone to stop taking their antidepressants based on this review and encourage anyone with concerns about their medication to contact their general provider. And I'm sure a lot of people, instead of contacting them, they just decided to stop taking it and just try to cope with it instead. Michael Bloomford, a consultant psychiatrist and principal clinical research fellow at University College London, who is not involved in the study, said, "Many of us know taking paracetamol can be helpful for headaches. I don't think anyone believes headaches are caused by not enough paracetamol in the brain. Same logic also applies to depression and medicines used to treat depression. There is consistent evidence that antidepressant medicines can be helpful in the treatment of depression and can be life-saving. We have a small, okay, and that's the end of the study right there. So let me open up more about my personal experience with going through therapy. So when I found my therapist, who, by the way, is someone who I think is a good fit for what I believe politically and for understanding where I'm going in my social life. So we did an exercise one day where I went through and picked things that made me feel bad. Then I picked things that make me feel good. Can you guess the common denominator with the things that make me feel bad? The things that make me feel bad are based in capitalism. And the things that I said made me feel good, based in anti-capitalism. So that right there is the catch-22 for me. And that even though this, with the way that the ruling class is in the United States and continuously trying to make the life of anti-capitalist type people worse, I can find solace in the fact that I have a platform to speak out against it, and that there are people who support me, and I support others who do the same. And finding a collective group to be a part of has helped me in that aspect. And trying to do things to help fight against this status quo capitalism is a thing that makes me feel good. Doing things socially that aren't popular or conventionally accepted. I can find comfort in doing that too. And that was one of the big things that I learned is in the time that I've done therapy, and now I can, when I do have a bad night, like last night I went to an event and I actually can trace my problems more so with like words and understanding and not get clouded, so to speak, by the chemical talk. I do understand that some people could not make a more holistic approach to addressing their depression like I'm trying to do right now. But I just know that just maxing it with like some antidepressants wasn't going to be the answer for me. However, there's like more natural stuff that you can use in alternative. And yes, weed can be a good anxiety thing. In order to fight back against your stress and depression. But we've also had people get on the rampage of the whole reefer madness. But yeah, I think that the next time I do a therapy session, I will be asking my therapist about the study just to see what she thinks about it. So I'm definitely finding I can now trace what causes me to fall into holes, what makes me uncomfortable in social settings. Because, for example, last night I went to an event, then I know that when I feel like a lack of a sense of belonging within a group, that I have a tendency to retreat socially. And even though I was still upset about the fact that I fell into the trap for a while, I at least could understand in my head while it was happening, instead of like going crazy about why is this happening and how can I get myself out. So my experience has been uncovering things about the root causes of what has led me to be like this socially awkward, introverted person who can be in front of this webcam for a couple hours, 2 to 3 times a week. But when you put him out in person around people he doesn't know, and especially when it comes to approaching women, that's a pretty damn big struggle for me. But now I've got a much bigger understanding of why I'm the way I am. And I think that in a way has helped me take a bit of pressure off myself and be less depressed about not only that, but pull myself out of those holes faster when I get caught down in them. So I think the whole exercise of learning your root causes and being able to do actual mental exercises to try to bring yourself out of it. I know for me, a big thing that I have found is being able to make myself vulnerable to others. And that if I'm if I get the right response from someone when I'm depressed and being open about what it is that's causing the issue at the time, then the right person can give me a response that can help me feel better, and I can actually start to get more in a level-headed state. So I find that like the interacting with a form of interacting with the depression and working through the problems with like discussion and feedback, so to speak, I find that works better for me. And just like trying to do natural things to control my anxiety. Would I like to find something a bit better to do a bit more for my anxiety? Yeah, I would. But if it's something that's also an antidepressant, then I'm going to pass on it. That's just my decision on that. And I feel like that study can definitely resonate more to me just because of my experience of not feeling like I've been addressed well enough when I've tried to tackle the issue of depression here. But I know that there's still going to be some people who probably going to have no other option but to go to that antidepressant route. But I found that learning how much capitalism has caused problems for people in the United States, regardless of qualifications, by the way, I think that's allowed me to become very level-headed. It's leveled me out a lot because I used to be overly competitive, but then once I realized the over-competitive aspect, having an unhealthy competition level is what capitalism wants you to have, then I curb that. And I think the next thing is coming to the realization that capitalism is going to cause problems is going to make your depression worse. Definitely does mine. And capitalism is going to make it harder to date. Think about the structure of dating apps, by the way. They're set up in a capitalist type of way. Making friends is very much hampered by capitalism too. Sex. Roe versus Wade, a basic example. They don't want us to be there's evangelical Christo-fascists who think we are too much of a sex-open country. And they only want us having sex to procreate. They hate the idea of people being able to have sex recreationally. So there's a reason why they wanted that Supreme Court to overturn Roe versus Wade. Because they don't want people to be enjoying their personal life having sex. They want them being fucking cogs for capitalism. So think about that for a moment. All things tied to capitalism, which could be causing your depression. And if we got socialism, we got a lot more opportunity to do things that make us feel good. Sex, working out, we'll be able to be in a better mental state to eat healthy. So yes, this show pretty much all connects to like mental health, healthcare, and capitalism. And I firmly believe that capitalism going down is going to solve a lot of these problems. Whether it's crime, that people, the only way people say can be solved is through increasing the powers of the police states. And military-industrial complex is also a very huge one. Think about all the troops that come home with PTSD. They're homeless. But then you got like Republicans who take the troops for granted the same way that the Democrats do with black people, with the way that those are the top groups that they try to pander towards in their respective campaigning messages. So there's a lot of work to be done here, but if you're looking elsewhere besides capitalism, then I don't think you're focusing on the right enemy. So thanks to everyone for tuning in tonight to the Rochford Files with your host, Andrew Rochford. Please go like the stream on YouTube. If you're new, subscribe, please, as well. Click the link tree. Follow me on other platforms that you see on the page. Follow me on Twitter at NugLifeComrade. NugGlifeComrade. And that's spelling from a second place winner of the 5th grade spelling bee. The next show, I am not exactly sure when that next show is going to happen. Ideally, I suppose there's a slight possibility I could go live Thursday, but we'll see. We will see. And I need to get back on it when it comes to asking some new guests on the show. I think it's been about a good 3 weeks, if not longer. Wait, no. It's been like a month since I've really had a guest on this. I think it's been like nearly 4 weeks since, and that was when C. Chet was on the show. By the way, good performances on that stream of COVID. So with that being said, this is Andrew Rochford saying goodbye and good night.